Something just happened in Cleveland that no one saw coming. Not the coaches, not the front office, not even the players standing on the practice field when it all went down. Dillon Gabriel, the rookie quarterback many expected to eventually take over the Browns' offense, is out. Not just for the week, not just for a few games. Reports say it's a season-ending, potentially career-altering injury. No contact, no big hit. Just one wrong plant during a routine dropback drill, and everything changed. Within minutes, the Browns stopped practice. Trainers ran to the field. Veteran players turned away. No details were given right away, but the silence said it all. And that's when Cleveland's quarterback nightmare shifted overnight into something completely different. This wasn't just about depth chart drama anymore. This was a moment that instantly rewrote the story. Suddenly, Shedeur Sanders, a once hyped wildcard buried in the roster, is no longer just an option. He's the face of the offense. Like it or not, believe in him or not, he's the guy now. And people are already calling it fate. Why? Because for weeks, the QB room had created chaos. There was tension among teammates. Gabriel reportedly wasn't happy with his reps. Coaching indecision leaked into game plans. And the fans? They were fractured. Some wanted Flacco, some wanted Gabriel. A surging wave online rallied around Sanders, a rookie who still hadn't played a regular season snap, but carried the charisma of someone who'd already won the team's trust without saying a word. The Browns had refused to settle it. Now, the football gods have. It's Shedeur's team now. No more controversy. No more QB committee. Just one quarterback, one chance, and one absolutely massive spotlight about to be placed on a rookie, just days away from facing a top 5 Ravens defense. Behind the scenes, it was just as dramatic. Sources say Gabriel had just completed a standard 5-step drop when his plant leg gave out. There was no contact, no defender nearby, just a sudden collapse. A quiet gasp from reps on the sideline. Medical staff waved over. Linemen kneeling. Helmets off. The kind of scene that coaches immediately recognize as serious. Initial reports suggest multiple torn ligaments, possibly both ACL and MCL. Recovery? At minimum, 12 months. Could it be longer? Could it end a career that hadn't even started? There are no guarantees, which means all eyes now turn to Sanders. And the way he's handling the moment tells you everything you need to know. No celebration, no flashy Instagram post, no loud declarations, just silence. Then this, he turns to his quarterback coach and says quietly, "Everything happens for a reason." Some called it cosmic, others called it cold. But inside the locker room, it hit hard. Maybe too hard. Because for all the unwanted drama Gabriel had created, complaints about reps, murmurs about ego, he hadn't deserved this ending. No one does. Still, that's football. That's how it goes. Just like that, the controversy ends, and a new chapter begins, with the Browns, the fans, and the league now united behind a single question. Can Shedeur Sanders actually save this season, or just survive it? It was supposed to be a normal day. The Browns were running a routine set of drills at practice, a scripted quarterback session with each player going through their reads, working timing routes, and prepping for Sunday. Dillon Gabriel had taken snaps hundreds of times before, in college and now at the NFL level. Clean footing, safe pocket, no contact expected. Just another rep, until this one broke everything. Reporters weren't even fully dialed in yet. Beat writers were checking their notes. Position coaches were calling out defensive rotations on the other end of the field. But then Gabriel dropped back. One cut, one plant, and stopped. His body went limp. He didn't twist, he didn't try to play through it. He just crumpled at the base of his dropback. At first, it looked like maybe he slipped. But then he didn't get up. No hand signal, no movement. Players froze. someone yelled for the training staff. Nearby skill players stood still, arms crossed, eyes wide. Some players jogged over, then turned back just as quickly. That's when it became dead silent. Within 30 seconds, 2 trainers and a team medical official were surrounding him. Gabriel reportedly didn't scream, but his face said everything. According to one source, it was a mixture of pain and realization. A veteran lineman on the sideline allegedly turned to a coach and whispered, "Season's done. Maybe worse." And it was. By lunchtime, Gabriel was in a medical facility undergoing immediate tests. By that evening, the Browns were internally briefed. The injury wasn't contact-based, which made it even scarier. Early word was a full ACL tear, along with potential MCL and meniscus damage. Multiple ligaments compromised on a single non-contact move. Those types of injuries don't just affect timelines. They can affect careers, especially for quarterbacks where lower body mechanics are everything. Think about how much depends on planting, pivoting, transferring weight. If you can't trust your leg at full speed, you'll never throw the same again. Team insiders told media outlets that one of the more experienced assistants, someone who's seen major injuries happen in real time, called it a snapping moment. Maybe for the knee, maybe for the season, maybe for Gabriel's shot at being the guy. Back at the facility, the mood shifted fast. Practice was paused, coaches huddled. Stefanski made the round to every unit group, telling players to reset, breathe, and stay locked in. Easier said than done, because everyone knew what the injury meant, both the tragedy and the opportunity. For better or worse, the Browns' quarterback competition had ended in a single misstep. That afternoon, the team sent out a tight, carefully worded statement. It mentioned Dillon's injury, expressed support, and offered no timetable, which is NFL speak for "it's serious." What the statement didn't say? Anything about a new starter. But by the end of the day, Shedeur Sanders was taking first-team reps. It's not often that fate delivers a decision that an entire franchise had been avoiding. The QB battle was unresolved, awkward, and getting uglier by the week. Coaches wanted different things. The front office had their own preferences. Players were divided. But when Gabriel went down, the answer was written for them. Dillon Gabriel's season, and maybe his career, was in jeopardy. And just 15 yards away, Shedeur Sanders quietly rose to the top of the depth chart. There were no announcements, no cheers, just a heavy silence from a franchise that realized in that moment there was no going back now. When practice resumed after Dillon Gabriel's injury, something was different. And it wasn't just the rep schedule. It was the silence. Not the focus-up kind of silence. Not the eyes-on-the-plan version. The kind that hangs in the air when players know something real just happened and no one quite knows what to say. Because when a teammate goes down, especially a quarterback, practice doesn't just lose its rhythm. It loses its meaning for a minute. Whether you liked Gabriel or not, whether you thought he was QB1 or QB3, the sight of someone's season ending in an instant always hits differently. But what happened over the next couple of hours and continued into the following day revealed something deeper. This wasn't just injury shock. It was the release of weeks of contained tension. Let's start with the reaction closest to the scene. Shedeur Sanders had been waiting for his turn, watching from the sideline as the reps rotated. He had just stepped back from a throw, towel draped over his shoulder, when Gabriel collapsed 5 yards in front of him. In that moment, all eyes instinctively darted toward Shedeur, not because he caused it, not because he celebrated, but because everyone knew what the injury meant. Shedeur didn't move. He watched, calmly, stoically, expression unreadable. Not a twitch, not a smirk, not shock, just clarity. Later, in a quieter moment, Several players overheard him say to the quarterback coach, "Everything happens for a reason." That phrase shot around the locker room faster than any injury report. Some took it as maturity, a calm embrace of destiny. Others whispered that it was cold, even calculated. But the truth was more complex. The locker room hadn't been united behind Gabriel. In fact, sources say that behind closed doors, there was growing fatigue around the quarterback situation. Coaches were walking a tightrope, trying to give equal opportunity, while players were left stuck in limbo, not knowing who to fully rally behind or who to build chemistry with. One veteran defender flat out said, "We stopped caring. We just needed a decision." And the injury gave them one. Within the hour, linemen were adjusting cadence responsibilities to match Shedeur's voice. Receivers were reviewing timing routes with a different depth assumption. The entire operation, slowly at first, then all at once, began to shift around its new centerpiece. The fascinating part? There was no speech. Shedeur didn't call a meeting. He didn't make a statement to the team. He just started showing up, earlier than normal. He walked into the film room before the coaches did, stayed long after the last group walked out. His body language said what his Instagram didn't. "I'm ready, professional, quiet, focused." Multiple players described him as locked in, not amped, not cocky, surgical. And while no one is out here saying they're glad about how it happened, there's also no pretending that things didn't just get easier. The offense finally knows who its leader is. One receiver reportedly said, "Look, we didn't wish that on Dillon. But we also didn't know where we stood before today. Now we do." On the defensive side, clarity brought its own benefits. Stopping Sanders in practice would now mean sharpening for Sundays, not just proving a point in an awkward rotation circus. One linebacker quietly said, "Now we can actually game plan." Even the coaching staff, particularly Stefanski, looked subtly relieved. The decision had been made for them. No more debates in the building. No more split reps disrupting flow. Just one signal caller, one playbook, one timeline. And in a high-pressure NFL environment, sometimes nothing's more valuable than knowing who you're going to war with and who you're protecting. The locker room had its answer. And for the first time all season, the Browns had a quarterback room with just one voice. Even before the official diagnosis dropped, the story was already out. Dillon Gabriel was injured, and Shedeur Sanders was taking first-team reps. That was all the online world needed. Within 30 minutes, Shedeur was trending #1 on Twitter, across Instagram and TikTok. Fans shared practice clips from weeks prior with new captions. "He's up. The future is now, and QB1 era begins." But the storyline didn't just catch on. It exploded with energy, and not all of it was sympathetic. Fair or not, a large chunk of the fan base had already turned on Gabriel before the injury. Reports of his frustration with reps, his visible annoyance in scrimmages, and rumors of behind-the-scenes attitude had framed him, fairly or not, as entitled. So, when an injury happened, fans didn't exactly react with heartbreak. They reacted with relief. That's brutal, but it's football. Fair emotion dies fast when fans believe they've just seen fate correct something their front office couldn't. As one fan posted in a viral tweet, "Gabriel acted bigger than the team. Karma handled it." Another wrote, "He fought the inevitable. The universe simply skipped the argument." The phrase "justice for Shedeur" trended nationally by the end of the day. Sanders had become more than a backup QB. He was now the symbol of a fan base fed up with indecision, and finally granted clarity, even through unfortunate circumstances. Media voices picked up the storyline just as quickly. On ESPN, Stephen A. Smith called it football justice, saying the Browns had stumbled into the right choice by cosmic accident. On FS1, Shannon Sharp didn't hold back either. Shedeur should have been the guy from the jump. It took injury for this team to make the obvious move. Even national analysts, usually cautious with hot takes, reacted like the dam had burst and nobody wanted to be left out of the spin. Former pros, Hall of Famers, and unfiltered NFL commentators didn't waste a second framing the moment as one of fate beating football politics. Some took issue with how quickly the narrative turned. A few analysts made a point to slow fans down, calling for respect for the injured player. And they weren't wrong. Dillon Gabriel, for all his flaws, is still a young quarterback whose future was altered by one unlucky move. The harshness of social media didn't give him room to breathe. The internet rarely does. But for Cleveland, forgiveness would come later. What mattered now was momentum, and nowhere was that clearer than in merchandise sales. Within 6 hours of the news, Sanders' jersey became the top-selling item across the Browns' online shop. Local vendors reported back orders and walk-ins asking for #2customs. Even fans who had ripped the team on Monday were buying new tickets by Tuesday. The team's marketing department reportedly got a call from ownership within hours. Activate everything around Shedeur now. Digital banners changed. App notifications shifted. Highlight packages were re-edited. This wasn't a slow build. This was a full-throttle launch. Internally, executives focused on ceiling. Externally, the media and fans focused on story. And the story had found its spark. A new face, a new voice, and finally, a sense of direction. Quarterback injuries rarely feel like resolution, but in Cleveland, with weeks of disbelief, indecision, and dysfunction behind them, this one did. And just like that, the Browns went from chaos to clarity, not through strategy, not through coaching, but through circumstance. Now the question became, with the world watching, would Sanders be the answer everyone wanted? Or just the beginning of another chapter in Browns quarterback history? The moment Dillon Gabriel was helped off that practice field, the identity of the Cleveland Browns began to shift. Not gradually, not by committee, instantly. Everything, from coaching strategy to branding efforts to locker room leadership, turned and pointed toward one man, Shedeur Sanders. And inside the building, everyone knew it. Within the same day of Gabriel's injury, sources leaked that Sanders was getting 100% of the first-team reps. Not working his way in, not splitting series. Quarterback one, from snap one. For a team that spent the last month rotating reps and walking on eggshells, this was the clarity they desperately needed. The coaching staff adjusted on the fly. The playbook was restructured almost immediately to reflect Shedeur's strengths: movement, speed, rollouts, bootlegs, RPOs, and vertical throws off play action. The old system was built around Flacco's pocket presence. The new one, built for chaos and created to let Sanders create. An assistant reportedly said, "For the first time this season, the playbook and the quarterback actually match." Offensive meetings were suddenly different. More ideas, more energy, less hesitation. Wide receivers began RSVPing to voluntary timing sessions with Sanders. The offensive line stopped wondering who to adapt to each week. Timing routes, cadence, communication, all consistent now. But that was just the football side. Across the hallway, the business side was moving just as fast. According to reports, owner Jimmy Haslam called the chief marketing officer minutes after team docs confirmed Gabriel's injury. His message was simple: go all in on Sanders, push the button. What had been a cautious rollout during camp, generic socials, shared QB promos, was now a full-on brand reboot. Graphics started featuring only Sanders. The team store replaced Gabriel and Flacco jerseys with racks of number 2s. The team app sent out push notifications with Shedeur quotes and practice highlights. Local partnerships rapidly shifted. One car dealership was reportedly asked if they'd sign Sanders as a local face immediately. For better or worse, the Sanders era had launched. And honestly, most inside the building felt like it was long overdue. Multiple team sources claimed privately that the front office had wanted this direction since week 1, but didn't want to step on Stefanski's process or spark a player mutiny. Now, that dilemma was gone. No decision required when fate makes it for you. But with that newfound clarity came a sharp uptick in expectations, maybe too sharp. Sanders wasn't just expected to be serviceable. Now he had to carry marketing, energize fans, and save a season. Rookie QBs don't usually walk into a franchise and immediately become a product, but this one did. The Browns have long needed a quarterback to unify ownership, front office, coaching staff, and locker room. And in a twist of fate, an injury just handed them one. So far, everyone agrees. Shedeur is handling it like a pro. He shows up at 5:30 a.m. and leaves after dark. He's meeting with linemen, pulling receivers aside, asking coaches hard questions about defensive alignment reads. He even met with the team's nutritionists to adjust for game week fueling. As one staffer put it, he hasn't even played a snap, and he's already acting like he's been running the team for 3 years. But now, it becomes real. The PR campaigns are out. The locker room is shifting. The city stands behind him. The Browns have picked their new face. Now, they've got to see if he's ready, with the Ravens' defense coming straight for his crown. No more runway. No more projections. No more waiting. Shedeur Sanders will make his first NFL start in front of a sold-out stadium, a frustrated fan base turned hopeful, and a national audience eager to see whether the Browns rookie can really carry the weight of this franchise on his back. And who's waiting for him on the other side? Only one of the NFL's most suffocating defenses, the Baltimore Ravens. Welcome to the baptism by fire. Let's not sugarcoat this. The Ravens' defense doesn't just perform. It intimidates. They don't test young quarterbacks, they expose them. Disguised pressures, exotic blitzes, complex coverage shells, and a hard-hitting front seven make Baltimore a nightmare for even veteran signal callers. Now imagine being a 21-year-old rookie walking into that. Ravens defensive coordinator Mike Macdonald is known for tailoring game plans specifically around breaking young quarterbacks' rhythms. Reports out of Baltimore say they've scrapped their original game plan and built a completely new scheme just for Sanders. Higher blitz frequency, corner disguises, misleading pre-snap looks that morph into traps. Every trick in the playbook, loaded and ready. One Ravens defender reportedly said during a team meeting, "He's talented, but he hasn't seen us yet." That's the mindset Cleveland is up against. And yet, that might be exactly what makes this game so dangerous for Baltimore. Because everything Ravens defenders are preparing for, they haven't truly seen him either. There's no real NFL tape on Sanders. What he was in college doesn't fully translate. And the limited preseason snaps, not enough to build a complete profile. Baltimore is preparing for an idea of Shedeur Sanders, not a reality. And in the NFL, underestimating what you haven't seen can get you burned, especially by a quarterback built for improvisation. Inside the Browns facility, the energy isn't fearful, it's focused. The staff knows who they're facing, but believes the offense, now built around Sanders, is harder to prepare for than anything Baltimore has seen on tape so far this season. One coach put it bluntly, they were prepping for Flacco and Dillon. Now they have to face Sanders. It's not just a change, it's an earthquake. In practice, Sanders has already adjusted to the speed. Reports say he's reading defensive rotations better than expected. He's calling out aligning safeties, audibling protections. The process is happening faster than it should be. And guys around him are taking notice. The receivers, locked in. The protection unit, sharpened. The playbook, lean toward movement, play action, and attacking downfield. Why? Because the Browns know they might not have the better game plan, but they do have the quarterback with more unpredictability right now. And unpredictability can rewrite any matchup. Still, the stakes are unforgiving. If Sanders succeeds, he becomes more than just a great Cleveland story. He becomes a national headline, a legitimate QB1, And the first Browns quarterback in years that feels real. But if he fails, if he throws early picks, if the offense stalls, or if Baltimore's defense rattles him into regression, then the questions flood back in, louder than ever. Was he rushed? Is Stefanski sabotaging another young QB? What happened to the plan? This matchup won't just measure how good Shedeur Sanders is. It'll measure if Cleveland, for once, is ready to properly support a quarterback whose success could finally change everything. No more excuses, no more experiments. This is football at its harshest. One shot, one rookie, one ruthless opponent. And by Monday morning, we'll know if the Browns officially have their quarterback of the future, or if the Ravens just gave them one more harsh reminder that in this league, promises mean nothing. Only performance matters. For Shedeur Sanders, starting against the Ravens marks the beginning of a massive personal journey. But for the Cleveland Browns, it's much more than that. This game could become the fork in the road for the entire organization, a moment that defines what happens next, not just for the quarterback room, but for the head coach, the front office, the locker room, and even the ownership's long-term credibility with fans. Let's break it down. First, Kevin Stefanski. Nobody's job is more directly tied to the performance on Sunday than his. He's the coach who couldn't commit to a starter, who split reps for weeks, who watched Gabriel spiral while Sanders sat, and who now has to live with the result that fate and an untimely injury made for him. If Shedeur shines, Stefanski might finally get a little credit for developing a young quarterback in his system. But don't be fooled, it's borrowed time. One wrong play call, one meltdown drive, one post-game interview that feels flat, and the noise will be deafening. He got lucky with an injury, not smart with a decision. And the front office? GM Andrew Berry is already under fire for mismanaging the quarterback room. Drafting Gabriel, signing Flacco, deep freezing Sanders during camp. It all looks worse if Sanders plays well immediately. Why did it take a tragedy for the team to play the most talented arm on the roster? Publicly, Berry will stay behind the curtain. But privately, this game will be watched as a referendum on his long-term logic. If Sanders works, Berry almost loses more than he gains, because the media and fans won't frame it as bold strategy. They'll frame it as patience forced by chaos. Then there's the locker room itself. This roster is loaded with players on the verge of contention windows or contract years. Veterans on defense. Young breakout stars at skill positions. If Sanders shows he can lead, rally guys produce with consistency, everything changes. Buy-in becomes real. Fatigue gives way to fire. But if it falls apart, if the team fizzles out again after a wave of fan excitement, the locker room won't recover. And nothing causes off-season turnover faster than a locker room that no longer believes the front office knows what it's doing. The brand is on the line too. The Browns had 4 quarterbacks in training camp and somehow still found themselves in quarterback limbo by week 3. That won't wash with future free agents, coaches, or fans unless Sanders brings it all together now. Ownership knows it too. Internally, Jimmy Haslam and company have already turned toward Shedeur as the face. The promos are up, the merchandise is selling out, and for the first time in years, the entire city is energized. But if that energy collapses again, it's not just about losing a season. It's about emptying patience that's already been pushed to its limit for 20+ years. One game won't decide everything, but it will decide something. Whether the Browns become a trending success story about a rookie stepping into greatness, or remain the NFL's cautionary tale of a team allergic to clarity. Sunday isn't just a test for Sanders. It's a test for everyone who stood by and watched this mess fester until fate forced a solution. By Monday morning, we'll all know if that solution worked, or if Cleveland just passed the blame to a kid who wasn't supposed to carry it all yet. There's something different about Cleveland this week. It's not just the jersey sales, or the way fans have suddenly repacked stadium rows and team stores with hope stitched into every number 2 jersey hanging from the rack. It's not even about headlines or camera crews crowding the practice field. It's about energy. The kind of energy that hasn't existed around this team in years. The kind that doesn't come from slogans, interviews, or draft picks. It comes from belief. And for the first time in a long time, the Browns have someone who's actually earned that belief. Not with hype, or a press conference, or preseason stats, but through how he carries it. Shedeur Sanders didn't campaign to be the starter. He didn't jump on social media, leak frustration through sources, or call out coaches in roundabout interviews. He just showed up every day, stayed quiet, stayed prepared. And when chaos struck, he stepped forward, not with a shout, but with certainty. And now, he's the guy. But here's the thing. None of that matters yet. Belief is everything in football, but results are still the currency. Because this Sunday, belief meets Baltimore, a franchise built on punishing the moment you hesitate. A defense designed to test your poise, your pocket presence, your every decision. And no matter how calm Sanders looks, how fast he studies, how sharp he speaks, what he does on the field will define how long this wave of enthusiasm actually lasts. If he floats under pressure, if he turns 3-step drops into 16-yard losses, if he throws behind sticks early and wobbles under disguised pressures, this city, this locker room, this front office will shake again, hard. But if he delivers, even flashes that something real, that command, that creativity, that it factor we haven't seen consistently at quarterback since before streaming services existed, then Cleveland may finally have found the piece it refuses to admit it's still been searching for. This isn't just a game. This is the test, because there's a big difference between wanting wins and wanting an era. That's what's at stake. This isn't about replacing Dillon Gabriel, or making good on hype, or turning fans into followers. This is about rewriting Cleveland's legacy. One throw, one drive, one Sunday at a time. Thanks for watching. If you're fired up for Shedeur's debut, or just anxious to see what this team really is, drop your take below. Are you sold already, or still waiting for the snap? We read every comment. We'll be back after the game, and win or lose, this story is only just beginning.